The first time I met my girlfriend's sister, she looked straight at me and whispered, "I dare you to stop looking at me." The story begins with a sense of arrival and anticipation. The narrator is stepping into new territory, meeting his girlfriend's family for the first time. His tone is observant, a little nervous, but sincere, which helps the audience feel the tension from the very start. The setting is a warm, lived-in home. The hum of conversation greets him as he enters. Dishes clink faintly from the dining room. The smell of roasted food mingles with fresh bread and coffee. He notices coats hanging by the doorway, family pictures on the walls, little signs that he's walking into an established life that isn't his own yet. This detail grounds the listener in something intimate, the family space. At first, the narrator sees the girlfriend's parents, maybe an aunt or uncle, cousins laughing together. He shakes hands, shares polite greetings, trying to mask his nervousness with smiles. But then she enters, the girlfriend's sister. She is not introduced dramatically. Instead, her presence shifts the air naturally. She is in her early 40s, graceful in a way that feels effortless. She doesn't need to compete with anyone for attention. It simply arrives with her. She carries herself with a quiet confidence, the kind that comes from knowing who she is and never needing to prove it. The narrator catches himself noticing small details. The way her hair falls loose around her face, how her laugh sounds lower, more textured than her sister's. He doesn't want to be caught staring, yet his eyes keep returning. And she notices. Later, in the kitchen, when he's been asked to help carry dishes, she steps close. The clatter of plates and the murmur of voices in the next room give them cover, but it feels suddenly too quiet between them. She reaches past him to grab a serving spoon, her shoulder brushing against his arm. Subtle, but enough to make him still. She tilts her head, eyes locking onto his. There's amusement in her expression, but also a test. And then she says it, softly, almost conspiratorially, so no one else could hear. "I dare you to stop looking at me." The line lands with playful mischief, but underneath, there's something more dangerous. Acknowledgement. She is not scolding him. She is calling him out, teasing, inviting. It's a spark in the middle of a family dinner, an undercurrent no one else will ever notice. For the narrator, the moment lingers long after she leaves the kitchen. The sound of laughter from the dining room seems distant, muffled. He feels guilty, a little rattled, but also alive. Her words replay in his mind like a secret he's not sure he should be holding on to. The emotional goal of this first part is to establish the forbidden tension with just one small exchange. No big gestures, no confessions. Just a look, a brush of contact, and a daring challenge that sets the tone for everything to come. The evening moves forward in the natural rhythm of family gatherings. Dinner has ended, and now everyone drifts into the living room. Some lounge on the sofa, others sprawl across armchairs or sit cross-legged on the rug. There's music faintly playing from a speaker in the corner, something soft and easy, and the fire crackles warmly, filling in the pauses between conversations. The narrator sits near his girlfriend, but not pressed against her. She's chatting animatedly with a cousin about old family stories, laughing brightly, her hands moving as she talks. He smiles at her warmth, but he notices his attention wandering, and inevitably it drifts again to her sister. She sits on the far side of the room, her posture relaxed but commanding. A glass of red wine rests in her hand, the light from the fire catching the rim and glinting in her hair. She isn't dominating the conversation, but when she speaks, people listen. The narrator catches himself watching the way her lips curve around words, the way her eyes linger on details others would miss. And then it happens again. Her gaze flicks toward him, sharp and knowing. She catches him looking. For a second, he panics inwardly. He shifts his eyes to the carpet, to the fire, to his glass of water, anywhere else. But when he risks a glance back, she's still watching. And this time, there's the faintest smirk playing at the corner of her mouth. It's a game. Every time he dares another glance, she's ready for him, as though she's been waiting. Sometimes she raises her eyebrow, as if to say, "Caught you again." Other times, she simply holds his gaze with calm amusement, making him feel more exposed than if she had spoken aloud. The narrator's girlfriend is still laughing beside him, completely unaware that, more than anything, makes his chest tighten. He knows he shouldn't be doing this. He knows he should focus on the woman who invited him here. And yet, there's something irresistible about the way her sister sees him. Not just sees, catches him. The longer it continues, the heavier the silence between them feels. Even though they're across the room and surrounded by chatter. The family could be telling jokes or arguing about politics. But for him, the entire evening narrows down to the weight of those stolen glances. At one point, she tips her wine glass toward him, just slightly, like a mock toast. No one else notices. He swallows hard, forcing himself to look away, but the heat in his chest lingers. The emotional goal of this part is to draw the audience into that tension of seeing without speaking. It's a private connection forged in the middle of a crowded room. A secret game that no one else in the family could ever suspect. By the time the evening winds down, he's restless. He's laughed at the right moments, nodded along with conversations, but in truth, all he can think about is her gaze across the room, her smirk, and the unspoken challenge that has only grown stronger since her whispered dare in the kitchen. The next day carries a quieter energy. The storm of introductions and the chaos of the family gathering have eased. The narrator wakes to the smell of coffee brewing and the faint patter of rain against the windows. It's one of those mornings where the house feels cocooned, sealed off from the outside world. He drifts into the kitchen, half expecting it to be empty, but she's there. The sister. She stands by the counter, sleeves rolled slightly above her elbows, slicing fruit with calm precision. She doesn't look up right away, but the corner of her mouth curves in recognition. "Morning," she says, her tone even, as if nothing unusual passed between them the night before. The narrator mumbles a greeting, stepping in to pour himself a cup of coffee. The air feels heavier than it should, not tense exactly, but charged, like the pause before lightning strikes. At first, the conversation is light. She teases him about looking half asleep, asks if he's surviving all the family chatter. He manages a smile, and she gives a knowing glance, one that suggests she understands how overwhelming it must feel. But then, almost without warning, the dialogue shifts. She leans against the counter, folding her arms loosely, watching him with that same unflinching gaze. "So," she says, "what do you see in my sister?" The question catches him off guard. He fumbles through an answer about kindness, shared interests, how she makes him laugh. His words sound rehearsed even to his own ears. The sister doesn't call him out directly, but her eyes soften, as though she sees past the surface. Then she says something that unravels him further. "You're thoughtful. She doesn't notice that about you." He pauses, mug halfway to his lips. It's a simple comment, but it lands deeply. For a moment, he feels exposed, like she has reached inside him without asking. He stammers something about not being sure that's true, but she only smiles, quiet and sure. The rain outside grows heavier, tapping against the glass like a steady rhythm. In the small silence, he realizes how close they're standing. Not quite touching, but near enough that he can smell the faint trace of her perfume, softer now in the morning light. Their hands brush when he reaches to take the bowl of fruit she's finished preparing. It's an accidental touch, brief and natural, but it lingers. He feels it long after she pulls away. The conversation drifts to safer ground after that. Talk of work, travel, little things that don't matter. But beneath every word is the memory of her question. And the way she saw something in him his girlfriend never voices. The emotional goal of this part is to shift the attraction from playful sparks to emotional depth. This isn't just about glances anymore. It's about being noticed, understood, in a way that feels both comforting and dangerous. As he leaves the kitchen, coffee warming his hands, he knows the exchange was small. And yet it feels like something irreversible has begun. The rain clears by afternoon, and the family decides to go out for lunch. The narrator rides with them to a small restaurant tucked on a lively street. The place is warm and bustling, glasses clinking, waiters weaving between tables, voices overlapping in a dozen different conversations. They are seated at a long wooden table near the window. His girlfriend slides in beside him, her hand briefly brushing his, smiling as she looks over the menu. Around them, the family falls into its usual rhythm, debating dishes, telling jokes, ordering more bread than they'll finish. At first, the narrator tries to stay focused on his girlfriend, on the noise of the room, on anything but her sister across the table. But it doesn't last. His eyes wander, and there she is again. She's angled slightly toward the light from the window, her features softened by the glow. She listens more than she speaks, yet when she does join in, her voice carries, smooth, self-assured. He notices the way she laughs, low and unhurried, as if she's in on a private joke the rest of the table has missed. And then, midway through the meal, it happens. The group bursts into laughter at a cousin's story. As the noise peaks, she leans across slightly, just enough for her shoulder to brush against his arm. The contact is casual enough to pass as nothing, but her voice, pitched just for him, slips into the moment. "Careful, you're staring again." He stiffens, forcing a laugh as though she said something about the joke. But she pulls back with a small smile, sipping her wine, her eyes sparkling with the kind of secret only they share. For the rest of lunch, it continues in small, calculated ways. When the waiter clears plates, she shifts slightly closer, her knee brushing his under the table. When she pours water for someone else, her hand lingers near his glass before moving away. Each touch is light, dismissible if questioned, yet it leaves his skin tingling. He tries to ground himself in conversation, joining in on stories, nodding along. His girlfriend doesn't notice. She's busy recounting childhood pranks with a cousin. But he feels caught in two worlds. The safe, open one at the table, and the hidden, electric one existing only between him and her sister. By the time dessert arrives, he's restless. The laughter and chatter around him blur into background noise. Every nerve in his body feels tuned to her. The way she tilts her head when he speaks, the subtle shift of her hand on the table, the way her eyes catch his just long enough before turning away. The emotional goal of this part is to heighten the tension by placing it in plain sight. Their silent exchange grows riskier, sharper, because it unfolds under the eyes of everyone else, invisible and undeniable at the same time. As they leave the restaurant, walking out into the sunlight, he feels her hand brush against his again in the shuffle of the crowd. No one else notices. But for him, it's the only thing he'll remember about the afternoon. The day winds down with familiar rhythms. Dinner, soft chatter, the clink of dishes being cleared. Eventually, the house quiets. One by one, lights dim, footsteps fade, doors close. The narrator finds himself awake still, restless from the weight of the unspoken tension. He steps outside onto the porch. The night air greets him with a cool bite, scented faintly with damp wood from the rain earlier. The crickets hum steadily in the dark, their chorus underscoring the stillness. He takes a breath, trying to steady his thoughts, but it's useless. Every glance, every brush of her hand from earlier replays in his mind. The door opens behind him, soft, deliberate. He doesn't have to turn to know who it is. She steps onto the porch quietly, carrying a glass with a few melting ice cubes clinking softly inside. She doesn't say anything at first, just leans against the railing a few feet away, her gaze fixed on the moonlit yard. The air shifts between them, dense with the kind of silence that's louder than words. Finally, she breaks it. "You look at me like you're searching for something." Her tone isn't playful this time. It's steady, measured, but there's a flicker of vulnerability under it, as though the words matter more than she wants to admit. He exhales, the truth tumbling out before he can stop himself. "I can't help it." For a long moment, neither of them moves. The crickets sing. A distant car hums past on the road. But between them, it feels like the world has gone still. She turns then, her eyes catching his in the dim porch light. There's no smirk, no teasing smile, just an intensity that pins him in place. "Do you realize how dangerous that is?" she asks softly. His throat tightens. He nods but doesn't look away. He can't. Her fingers tap lightly against the rim of her glass, the sound sharp in the quiet. She looks away, toward the dark yard again, as if steadying herself. Then, with a whisper that cuts through him, "And yet you don't stop." The space between them feels charged, alive, as though one step would ignite everything. His hands grip the railing, knuckles white, fighting the urge to move closer. She's so near he can catch the faint citrus of her perfume again, mingling with the cool night air. For a heartbeat, it feels inevitable, like they'll cross that final line. But she stays rooted, and so does he. Both of them know what it would mean, and both of them hesitate. The moment stretches, taut as wire, before she finally exhales and looks down into her glass. "You shouldn't." Her words are soft, almost lost to the night. But the way she says them, like she's reminding herself as much as him, tells him everything. The emotional goal here is to pique the tension through direct acknowledgement. No more games, no more silent glances. The desire is spoken aloud, the risk clear. And yet, restraint keeps them on the edge, leaving the audience breathless with the question of what might happen in the night after their porch confrontation carries an odd weight, as though both of them are carrying an unfinished sentence, too dangerous to say out loud. He tries to lose himself in routine, helping around the house, joining in casual conversation, but underneath, everything feels charged. Every movement, every accidental touch, carries a deeper echo now. That evening, the house feels quieter than usual. His girlfriend is out with friends, her laughter trailing behind her as she left earlier. It leaves him and her sister alone for the first time in days. The awareness of that fact hangs in the air, unspoken but unmistakable. She's in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the couch with a book in her hands. A soft lamp spills amber light across her face, catching the gentle curve of her cheekbones, the lines of experience that make her beauty richer, fuller. He lingers in the doorway, watching without meaning to. She notices, of course. She always does. "You just going to stand there?" she asks, her voice calm, but the faintest trace of a smile in her tone. He clears his throat, forcing himself to move. He takes the armchair across from her, but it feels impossibly far. She watches him sit, then closes her book, slipping a ribbon into place. The quiet between them stretches, not awkward, heavy. After a moment, she leans forward slightly, her elbows resting on her knees. "You don't even try to hide it anymore." His pulse quickens. "Hide what?" Her eyes lock on his, steady, unwavering. "The way you look at me. It's out there now, bare and unshielded." He can't deny it. Instead, he lets silence answer, because silence is safer than confession. But even in silence, she knows. She rises slowly from the couch and crosses the room, her steps measured, deliberate. She sits on the edge of his armchair, closer than she's ever allowed herself to be. He can smell her perfume, soft, citrus and jasmine, mingling with the faint warmth of her skin. "Do you know," she whispers, "how close I am to letting this happen?" The words unravel something inside him. His breath catches, and for the first time he doesn't look away. He can see the flicker of conflict in her eyes, the push and pull of everything unsaid. Her hand brushes against his, not by accident this time, but deliberate. The touch is feather-light, but it sends a jolt through him, like every nerve in his body just woke up. His instinct is to turn his hand over, to lace their fingers, but he freezes. They hover there, caught in the gravity of almost. His heart pounds loud in his ears, and he's sure she hears it. Their faces are inches apart now, the kind of closeness where the world disappears, where even breathing feels like too much. But then she exhales sharply and pulls back, standing quickly as though the movement itself is her salvation. She turns away, pressing her palm to her forehead. "No," she says softly, more to herself than to him. "We can't." The moment fractures, and yet the echo of it lingers, pulsing in the room like a second heartbeat. He sits frozen, knowing that for one suspended second, they stood at the edge and almost stepped across. This part is the emotional climax of restraint. A near crossing where desire is acknowledged not just in words, but in proximity and touch, then pulled back at the last second. The audience feels both the ache of what nearly happened and the inevitability that something must resolve. XT. The day of departure arrives quietly, almost inconspicuously. The house is filled with the soft bustle of packing, final goodbyes, and the muted clatter of luggage being rolled down the hall. His girlfriend chats happily with her family, oblivious to the storm of thoughts spinning through the narrator's mind. He moves alongside her, helping with bags, smiling when necessary, all the while carrying attention no one else can see. Her sister, meanwhile, lingers in the living room, glancing occasionally toward him. There's a quiet electricity in those stolen looks, a private current beneath the normalcy of farewells. She doesn't approach him directly at first, letting him think she might remain in the background. But when the last suitcase is packed, she appears in the hallway, a subtle calmness to her posture that belies the unspoken intensity between them. He stops, catching her gaze. The rest of the family is distracted by last-minute goodbyes, loading the car, and final hugs, but for a moment, it's just the two of them. Her eyes search his, steady yet soft, and he can feel the weight of every glance they've exchanged over the past days. She steps closer, not touching, but close enough that the warmth radiating from her is tangible. "You'll think about this, won't you?" she whispers, her voice barely audible over the distant chatter. "About me daring you?" He swallows, the words lodged in his throat. A laugh rises that's half disbelief, half confession. "I already do," he admits, his voice low, almost intimate. He doesn't move closer, but the honesty itself bridges a distance no physical step could. Her lips curve in a faint, knowing smile. It's the kind of smile that carries mischief, recognition, and perhaps a little sorrow all at once. She turns away slowly, letting the moment linger just long enough to echo in his chest. The brush of her sleeve as she passes him is soft, deliberate, and it leaves him shaken more than he expected. The narrator walks toward the door with his girlfriend, who doesn't notice the tension that has quietly threaded itself through these days. The ride home is calm, almost mundane, but he carries the weight of what could have been, and what, in small, fleeting moments, already was. The emotional goal of this part is closure without crossing the final boundary. Their connection remains intense, undeniable, but restrained by circumstance. It's a bittersweet resolution, a private understanding shared between them that will linger in memory and imagination. The story closes with a together but uncertain tone. They haven't acted on their desires, but the bond is undeniable, leaving the narrator changed. He reflects on the subtle power of that age gap tension, the quiet intensity of being seen by someone who understands, and the thrilling danger of a connection unspoken yet deeply felt. The sensory details anchor the emotional weight. The warmth of her near touch, the sound of the car door clicking shut, the soft hum of the road under tires, and the lingering scent of her perfume. All small imprints that stay with him long after the family home fades from view. By leaving the tension unresolved yet emotionally complete, the story closes on a note that is both satisfying and haunting, perfect for a slow-burn YouTube romance narration. If this story left your heart racing and you want to hear more slow-burn romances like this, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if you were in his shoes?